Alright, hello. And so I'm going to be going over a series that I just found on Netflix called Ragnarok. They are currently in their season 2, well, at least where I am, in my area. And I know I always say this, but I do want to keep this very brief. So I'm going to try to aim it at the 10-minute mark, more or less. And so if I had to describe Ragnarok up till now, season 1, it's very much a mix of Percy Jackson with Twilight, and sprinkled with Norse mythology. And so, uh, what we are presented in the very beginning is this family that is consistent of a single mother with her two children. I say children, but they're both in high school, and they are moving back to their hometown of Edda, Norway. Now, from what we are brought to believe, um, they left at a very early age. In fact, it was due to the tragic death of their father that they left. And so it looks like they have been going through some rough times and some, you know, rough times, and they are forced to come back to their hometown. And so we are presented with the protagonist alongside with his brother, Magne, who is this tall, dyslexic, but he's also very kind-hearted and is very honest. And his brother is, well, physically he's very much the opposite. He is shorter than him, or more on the smaller side. But he is also well-intentioned, although he can be a bit sarcastic, but you can tell that from the way that he is able to mix in, he blends in to whichever environment he's at. He's very much the type of person that adapts and can easily kind of change depending on the situation. Not that it's in a bad way, it's just the way it is. Now, in this hometown, the reason why I say it's very much like Netflix, I mean not Netflix, Twilight, is that we also have this kind of like rich and old family. So similar to the Collins, except that they're not vampires. They're actually giants. And by the way, there might be a bit of spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, uh, you know, just listen to what I said before about it being like a mix. Overall, it is an interesting series that caught my attention, and this does use very much the themes of climate change, pollution, and you mix within it this kind of duality between, you know, good versus evil. Um, but you're using Norse mythology, so evil being the giants who have this corporation, this industry that's polluting the hometown, the waters. But then you also have the good, you know, the old gods that are being reincarnated, if you will. And they're fighting against this type of changes into the environment, trying to kind of open the people's eyes on what's going on. And so when I go back to this family, who are definitely not the Collins, they are actually a family of giants. Not the giants that we think of as being like mountain sized and all of that. It's more like they can camouflage themselves. They have the ability to shapeshift and become kind of they, in order to blend in, you would see them and they very much look like any other person. And so when the time comes, uh, some members are gonna appear to be children, and the others are going to appear to be the parents, and that way they can stay there longer. And then again, by the time the next generations follow, they repeat the same cycle. And so again, those that were the children before are now the parents, and those that were the parents are now the children. And it's just the cycle that they have learned to use to their advantage in order to stay unseen. And so one of the first things also that we see immediately when they get to town is that Magna, the the hero of the story, you could say. He helps this older gentleman who is on his wheelchair, but it's one of those electrical ones, and he just cut in front of them in the middle of the street, but his battery seemed to run out, so he could not move. And what Magne proceeded to do is that he got out the car, helped him go to the sidewalk so that he's not in any danger. And this old woman touches his forehead, and all of a sudden he starts noticing some changes. First of all, he's way stronger than before. He's able to throw a hammer. I think in the season they said about 541 meters, more or less, but he's also able to throw it over a kilometer. And I'm talking about a big hammer. Um, we also have that he can run uh, about 2 seconds faster than the world record. So in the 100-meter dash, and he's very fast, very strong, and even if he's hit by, I don't know, like a heavy machinery, he survives, and basically without a scrape, a bruise, a broken bone, nothing, nothing at all. And when Magna, who again, he's dyslexic and he has a harder time adapting, he makes a friend who is very much into the environment and ecological preservation and is very much against the industry that is in their hometown, polluting the waters, and she's actively trying to prove that they're causing these damages. Well, she, well, we find out that she passes away, she dies, and she's basically his only friend. And throughout the whole season, Magna is trying to find the evidence to prove that she didn't die in an accident, paragliding as was claimed, but she was actually killed. And that's what he tries to prove. But every time that he tries to prove something, what's his word versus, this family who is very well respected and the wealthiest family, and they have the status, they have the wealth, they even have some of the officials in their pockets, you could say. And so every time that he tries to denounce this family, it's not going very well for him because they are very cunning and they do disprove him. Um, he finds these barrels that contain a liquid that has been contaminating the waters, and it's basically industrial waste. And it's in it they when they test the waters that gets contaminated from these barrels basically contain cadmium, mercury, and lead, which is very dangerous. I mean, even cadmium, if even in trace amounts, it can cause very serious disease. And so when that happens, the police officer, because it's in these this wealthy family's property, well, she obviously has to notify them that, hey, we're going to do investigation. And by the time they get there, the barrels are already gone. And so Magna is left there to seem like he's lying to them and that they shouldn't believe him. And that's the type of gameplay that goes on. Now, Magna is not just kind of gaining these like powers as Superman. He is actually kind of like a reincarnation of Thor. And so in the end, because he is so much a threat for the giants and he has to be killed in the confrontation that he has with basically the head of the family, he summons lightning because there was no damage at all when he was hitting that giant. He was not getting any damage. He wasn't even bleeding, nothing at all. And so he summons lightning, strikes, and boom. That's where the season ends. And it's kind of like a draw situation because none of them wins and none of them loses. And so it's an impasse which is going to continue on into season two. From what I can say, it's an interesting premise. You know, talking about these environmental changes and then, the damages done by industries that are contaminating the environment, poisoning the environment at the expense, they are doing all this for profit at the expense of the health of the people in the area as much as the health of nature. And so it's very interesting how they integrate the Norse mythology because it's not just, oh, he's Thor, he's going to use lightning, superheroes, right? It's not like another Marvel movie because this isn't Marvel. And it's very quite smart the way they do this because one, the characters don't rely on the powers, and two, they have to think very carefully because they have to avoid being detected. That's one. And the second is because he's still learning, Magne is still learning about his own strengths and powers. Well, you see his progress and how he's trying to adapt it in his own life and how he's even struggling, even being a teenager and even with his struggles in school and then having felt the loss of a friend. These are the things that he has to get adjusted, and these are things that we see him go through, and you want to really root for him. You want him to succeed. You want him to succeed over this corporation, not just as an individual, but the corporation itself. Well, that's all I'm going to say for now. And, after season 2, I'll talk to you later. So, peace.